Hey, so today I'm gonna be doing another Jim Lee study, and this is based on how he draws female figures. I find it very cool how he clearly has an understanding of how he approaches figures, because where the male figures are really buff and broad with their shoulders and chest, very huge, muscular, I want to say Titan looking, but that's not the word I want. But in any case, you probably understand what I'm talking about. Have a very strong physical presence. The females are more lean, still muscular. I mean, shows that athleticism and superheroes tend to look that way. But like they're much, slimmer in frame. And I thought that was interesting to explore. I'm doing one of the female characters he did here. I'm not even sure who it is. My background with comics is not very well informed. I only know the popular ones, and it's partly because I grew up in a country that didn't have comic books available like that. And so I never had the opportunity to invest in, the lore of the X-Men. I only had access to the movies that would come out and I watch on TV. But either way, knowing or not knowing, it's cool to just look at the way he draws figures in an expressive manner. I'm gonna be tackling a few more with the time that I was given in the day, the time that I had rather, to draw all of this. And it's so good to look at the sketches of the artists you admire. With Jim Lee, I found a lot of his work on Pinterest, which is a very good resource to find references, whether you're drawing people like from life or whether you're drawing comic book characters. It's a very valuable resource, and it's been cool to explore not just the sketches but also the inking, which I'm definitely gonna do in a follow-up video or a video after that. I've had a look at the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way book and played with panels, logo composition. And I've recently resumed doing more Jim Lee studies. Now, what happens when you are studying from the artist that you admire? You're redrawing his drawings, but it doesn't really come out one for one. And this is where the power of repetition or variation comes into play. I was struggling with one drawing, and I'll make a separate video for it because it's not part of the session I had here. Because there are poses that he gives his heroes that seem understandable, like you can see what the person's doing, but when you draw it, it's a little bit trickier. And I'm sure that you might relate to that if you're someone who already does studies of your favorite artist. You want to put on the page the same thing that you're seeing because they did it in such a way that you can read it very well. Only that when you now put it on the page, it's revealing to you what you are lacking in knowledge and also what you're not necessarily paying attention to. And so I kept drawing it again and again, no erasing, just using that same page and drawing the pose over and over. And it gave me a much more accurate look because I finally figured out what I was missing. And there's something about that, like just embracing the mistakes that you will absolutely make. There's no such thing as a perfect drawing anyways. And learning from that. Over here I erased because I have a tendency of drawing the face a bit too big for the head size. This time I wanted to make it look a bit sharper and more accurate to the character that I'm drawing. Now, speaking specifically about these drawings of a female figure, one thing that has been nice to observe is how Jim Lee does his hatching and also just scribbles like I did at the bottom, which are representative of her being in water or some form of liquid. The next drawing I'm doing is a drawing of Catwoman. Almost said Black Cat, I know that's Marvel. And just seeing the way he positions the eyes and nose, I'd say the eyes for the female seem to be slightly bigger. I could be mistaken, but I think so. And then with the male figures, they're much smaller. Lips as well. And I understand in terms of like, I think psychologically, when it comes to appeal, these are often traits that seem to attract us more, and not necessarily in a sexual way, but just in our innate nature when we are drawn to things, And so paying attention to like how the chest for his female figures aren't necessarily like tiny, but compared to the male figures, they absolutely are. You go to art done by like John Byrne from way back when, and his female chests were a lot bigger than I'm used to even drawing female figures, whereas Jim Lee is slightly smaller. And yeah, it's all about style, right? And the beautiful thing about learning from your favorite artist and their style is that you start to pick up some of what they do, and then you turn it into your own thing. If you want to discover your style, the best way to do it is to learn from the people that you admire. It becomes a combination of those things. Don't try to be so original that you become delusional in achieving what you desire. All of us are the sum of parts, right? Like I take certain things from my parents and certain things from my friends, teachers, and the people I listened to, whether it was musicians, the people I admire. And in all of that, there is your voice that comes out from those things. And it's beautiful because we're all connected at the end of the day. I'm adding just a bit more, I guess, shading, but I just want the suit to appear black as it does. I know that the drawing that I'm using as reference was inked. And that was also another cool thing I discovered, which is the way he draws versus the way he inks. And he doesn't always do his inks, though when he does, it's still cool to see what is left out in the sketch for the inker to do, or for himself to do in another phase, versus the way you think it's supposed to be all done in pencil. And if you pay attention to the drawings that he's done of the same characters, they don't always look exactly the same, but there's certain features that once or always redrawn, you can recognize it's the same person. And that goes back to the thing of no such thing as perfect drawings. If you can get the likeness relatively well, then you're good to go. And so same thing with this drawing. Catwoman is drawn a little different. I believe her face was slightly wider, and yet you can still identify based on the costume, right? And even certain features of the face that is the same person. It's not so different that you're like, I guess that's supposed to be Catwoman, but it's in a different, panel. And I definitely struggled with that when I made comics as a teenager. I'm looking forward to remaking comics in the near future, but for now, just continuing to work on and improve my skill. Jim Lee is not afraid of erasing a drawing that has gone like up to this far in adding detail, and that's powerful. And I've been doing that. If you watch the previous study I did with Wolverine, you'll see I did it with the arms, and I'm still not happy with the way it came out, but I'm glad I did it because it's liberating in a sense. You don't feel so attached to how it looks right now, but you also can't go in with the mindset of perfectionist or perfectionism. Like, don't erase to try and get a perfect picture, just erase to get a better picture. I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching. Until the next one, take care.